Hi, third grade. So we're gonna do close to one of our final lessons for our plant unit. And today we're gonna learn about the bees. So they play a very, very important role in our plants, and you're gonna find out why. Before we get started, I wanted to talk a little bit about three different types of bees. We have the queen bee, a drone, and a worker bee. So a queen bee, she's the one who lives the longest. She lives from about 3 to 5 years. And sometimes she can lay up to 1,500 eggs in just one day, which is pretty remarkable. The drone bee lives for about 1 or 2 seasons, and he's the one who kind of takes care of the queen bee. And then last but not least, we have our worker bee. This bee only lives from about 3 to 6 weeks, and it's the most common bee. So what does the worker bee do? It works a lot. So it feeds the babies, it's in charge of building, it's in charge of cleaning the hive, guarding the hive, making sure that the hive is at the right temperature, and even more importantly, the worker bee collects nectar and pollen, and that's what today's lesson is going to be about. So if you look here, I have a picture of a worker bee, and I'm going to go over the different parts of the bee, and then that will lend itself to the remainder of the lesson. So right here we have a picture of the worker bee. These are the antennas, and then we have eyes. And they actually have a set of eyes here, and then another set of eyes. They have really, really great vision. This is their head. This part of the bee is called the thorax. Down here is called the abdomen. And they also have what's called a honey stomach. And what that does is it's a storage sac which bees use to transplant nectar, which I thought is always kind of cool. They have legs here, a set here, and hind legs back here. So these middle legs are actually used to clean the wings and body to empty the pollen baskets in when they get to the hive. So those are really important legs to have. Okay, so that takes care of our legs. Moving on to our wings, they have a set of wings here and a set of wings there. So this is a diagram of our worker bee. So what I've done is I've made a bee stick, because what I'm going to teach you is how bees pollinate different plants. And then pollination is what keeps the life cycle of plants going, gives us new plants and all of that. So pollination is important. So this is a worker bee that I've just glued to a toothpick. Now when a worker bee goes out and finds food or pollen, it actually does two types of dances. So if the worker bee goes out and finds some food and it's really close by to the hive, it goes back to the hive and it tells everyone that there's food close by doing a dance in circles. And that's how it tells them where it is. If the food is further away from the hive, then the worker bee comes back and does a different dance, and this time they do a dance in a figure 8. So there's the round dance, and then they also do the figure 8 dance if the food is further away. Okay, so we've been studying our plant, and this plant is the one that we've been watching, okay? The 4 quadrants, and this is day 23 of the plant. And if you can see in the flowers, they're bloomed, they've bloomed, and there's these little areas, if you can see, thank you, Kylie, where I'm going to take my bee, and this is what bees do in real life, and I'm going to take them up and I'm going to get the pollen, and the pollen sticks to the bee's either abdomen or sometimes on the face. And then now that my bee has gotten pollen, I want to go pollinate another plant. You can't pollinate the same plant. It won't do what it's supposed to do. So you want to cross-pollinate, and you want to come over to a different plant and you want to share that pollen on that plant. Okay, so if I had this plant in my yard and I had a bee, the bee would want to go take the pollen from this plant and it's going to give it to another plant in my yard. And then that helps plants reproduce and make more. So he's going to take the pollen, cross-pollinate to another one. But then I had started so inside of those flowers is where your pollen is. And I'm sure right now you know what pollen is because it's allergy season and it's flying everywhere. So it's all that green stuff you're seeing on cars and places like that. So now that my flowers have bloomed, I have pollen. Then what if I had a neighbor? And here's my neighbor. My bee could also go to, can you see my bee? It has pollen on it. No, you can't see. All right, so we're gonna go to the neighbor's house and
But it has pollen.
We're gonna take the pollen and cross-pollinate, and we're gonna share some of the pollen from our plants in our yard with the neighbor's plants in their yard, back and forth. So you might be wondering what this larger, longer, straggly plant is. This was from when I planted my first round of seeds to make sure they worked. So this is also a Wisconsin fast plant. There's a lot of them. I didn't thin and transplant them or anything. I just kept them just in case my current ones didn't turn out. So we were fortunate, and now we have lots of plants that we can use to pollinate. So boys and girls, I hope that today you understand the importance of bees. I am going to be showing you another video in the future of what happens since we pollinated. There is a next phase of what's going to happen to our plants, so I'm pretty excited for you to see that, so stay tuned. Today's lesson was to teach you bees take pollen. You have to take it to a different plant. It can't take the pollen to its same plant, and that's how they pollinate. You learn parts of the bee, and you have an activity to do. Keep up the great work, and we'll talk soon. Bye.